Timmy, do you want to do the intro? I think you're very good at this.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, Mr. Money Jar here. I'm here with Will Billingsley from the AppTap team and Rachel Gentry from RTG, and we're going to be talking about open banking today.
Our kind of running name of the video series, which is Banking, Bills and Beverages. So
Took us a long time to settle on that name.
I did bring myself a little drink as I came along because I was
Awesome.
advised that was a good thing to do. So
I have a beer sat right there.
Yeah.
no, I'm not. I've gone. It's Monday, sadly, so I try and be sensible, but I have gone pretty rather than strong.
Like it. How you doing, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us. It'd be good to if you could give us a little bit of background about what you did in the open banking space.
Yeah, so I'm Rachel Gentry. I was the counter fraud lead in open banking for 3 years, actually, in the end, almost right from the beginning when the program started. And I now do a couple of days a week for open banking as they're starting to transition to more live operations. It's been a fantastic journey, really great. And then along the way, I met people like you. So got involved with AppTap and had a look to see what you guys are up to.
So if I could ask then, my understanding is that open banking was introduced in the UK in 2015.
Yes, so the Competition and Markets Authority did their investigation initially just into retail banking.
Yeah.
So they were looking at retail banking from a consumer perspective around competition and choice, and in reality how easy it was for consumers of personal bank accounts to switch to better products that were more suited to their needs. And somewhat unsurprisingly, if you've been in the money industry for a while, they discovered that personal bank account users, both consumers and small medium enterprises, really weren't being very well served by the big bank providers. And not because they were particularly doing anything nefarious, just because actually it was quite hard. Once you've got your bank account, it's a bit of an effort to create the bank account in the first place. It's then very hard to switch to a different provider.
Yeah. And
there's lots of barriers to competition. But the big 9 banks that in open banking parlance, you hear us talk about the CMA 9. They are the 9 banks that the Competition Market Authority said, look, you've got 80% of the market. We're going to come up with a suite of remedies to make this market function better and more in line with what the consumer wants and needs. And you 9, because you have so many of the accounts, such a big proportion of market share, then you are obliged to comply with our remedies. So it's not laws, they come up with things they call remedies. And there's a whole combination of different remedies. So one of them you might have heard of is the current account switching service. They do that kind of funky television advert with the dancing man.
With the smoothest man on the planet, yeah.
Precisely. And that was to help people switch accounts where, it's a pain in the neck. I've done it. You've got loads of direct debits and standing orders, and you switch accounts, you worry that you're not going to make a payment you need to make. So that was one of their remedies. And then open banking was a second set of remedies that was really designed to allow third-party providers who'd started to enter the market have easier access to banking data. But in order to do that, you had to share your login details and your password with them, which clearly is not terribly secure. And that put a lot of people off, because obviously we spent a lot of time educating consumers in cybersecurity and saying, don't do that. That's a really, really bad idea. So open banking was based on the premise that we needed to drive more choice, we needed to drive more competition, and we needed to drive innovation in that personal banking market.
Could I ask you what's potentially quite a cheeky question, which is that 7-day switching service came in response to the pain and hassle that a consumer would experience when they're changing their bank account. Completely get that. And I think people use and understand that service. For us 3, we maybe understand open banking more than the average person. Do you think it's fair to say that the changes have come in first and then the education has come afterwards? Because when you speak to the average person on the street, they don't really understand what open banking is, or if they're even using it, what the use case is. How come it's happened that way round?
I think it's a really good point, actually. So we had some very long discussions internally in the early days about whether open banking was in itself a thing or whether it was an enabler of other things. And we quite quickly came to the conclusion that actually what was important was the propositions. So what were the products and services that open banking would facilitate, not the specifications and the standards that open banking would design. We were providing the specifications for those railway tracks and the kind of rules of what could run along those tracks. The actual products and services themselves came later, because it was only once you could see what the use cases that you could create out of those specifications that you started to get propositions. And as you know, as Will and the guys know from AppTap, it's quite a long time to get a germ of an idea and test it and run it in a sandbox and try and make sure it works and links with the banks correctly.
Yeah, totally.
So the CMA did define some use cases, and that became what open banking called the roadmap. So the CMA had two different initial perspectives. One was just like a read-only set of specifications, and they were basically designed to make life easier for the consumer. And they range from things like, actually, wouldn't it be great if I could have an app that just told me where my nearest bank was that had step-free access, or where my nearest cash point is that's free of charge to use, regardless of what bank brand. Wouldn't it be great if actually I could get a list of all the current accounts that are available in the UK, but be able to see them in the same way, so I can more easily compare a bank account from one bank with another bank with another bank. Interesting use cases were the sorts of products that AppTap is starting to talk about, where you're saying, well, actually, let us share your financial data. Let us have access to your transactions over the last 5 years. And then actually what we will do is marry that with the open data from everywhere else, and then come back to you with proposals that meet your personal circumstances. When you start to talk about those, then you start to talk about security, because obviously from both sides, you know, the banks don't want to give their data to people that they don't know, but equally as a consumer, you don't want people reading into your bank account if you don't know what they're going to do with it. So it started to link in then to things like the GDPR privacy regulations. So, and that was one of the things actually I was going to say. So open banking and the CMA started, but at the same time, Europe was also developing its own approach. And they developed what was called PSD2, so the Payment Services Directive 2, which is open banking, but with a wider scope. So it took, open banking was initially just current accounts, personal and business current accounts, and PSD2 was much wider, so it started to look at credit card transactions and direct debits and standing orders. So open banking then expanded its scope to cover PSD2 as well as the core CMA order.
And you were talking about the road ahead. I have a question around previous advancements we've seen in banking. So contactless payments first arrived in the UK in 2007, and we only last month got an increase to £45 payments through contactless, which when you spread it out over 13 years is in a way it's like you can pay using your watch, and you can kind of, you know, there's NFC and that sort of thing, and all the buses and tubes have it now. But when you think about that being the culmination of 13 years of contactless, it does seem like it's not that much. So can we expect to see, you know, for Will and team, are we looking at potentially a 10-year project?
I don't think it'll take 10 years.
Not.
I did do some research. In fact, Will, this was one of the things I talked about on that first evening at Crimson, but I don't remember the stats. But it was something like it took 100 years for 150 years for checks to really start to get taken off, and 100 years for credit cards, and then it was 20 years for debit cards. And it's like anything in technology, the rate of adoption and the rate of change is accelerating. So I'd hope not. I think now it's just about persuading people. And actually, it's really funny. So I run my own business, and I have a really great bank account, but they're not yet open banking, and but they have just gone into partnership with TrueLayer. So my husband said, "Oh, I've got this company, TrueLayer, and they say they can look at our data, and do we want to?" And I went, "Yes, of course we do." And it was really, really great. As I say, I spent 3 years there, and suddenly there was a product that I was thinking, I helped build this. It's not just that it makes my life easier, but actually I was part of the organization that made this happen, and that was really great. Really great to see it come to life.
The use case for business owners, I think, is a lot clearer though, because when you think of something like someone's got a business bank account and it's maybe using Xero or QuickBooks or something, you do want your bank account to sync up to your accounts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of downloading spreadsheets and manually.
It's horrific.
It's become so much easier in the last few months when Xero started to do that for us, for Tide, our business bank.
Yes.
It's just like relax a little bit. Where it's just these things that as a founder, business owner, director, you just don't. Accounting sucks for most people.
Yeah. And it takes forever. Even with an accountant, it takes forever.
Yeah.
There's better things to do. The only thing is, with small business owners, there are two challenges. So one is they don't have time. So I think the education and the awareness and the messaging to them is more important. So there has been less uptake of business bank switching and that sort of stuff, because they just don't have time to do it, and they just kind of go, oh, it's on my list, but I'll do it next month, and it's always next month.
Yeah.
And the other challenge is actually around security, because people don't have time. And I am talking about the smaller end of the market. So, but the smaller SMEs, they're more likely to react and respond to something quickly and get fished into giving away information or giving away credentials. And because of that, they're more wary of taking on new services. So there is a lot, I think, to do. It is a much more obvious use case, but it's a much harder market to crack. Yeah. Whereas in the consumer market, people are a bit more open to, well, I'll give it a go. And if I don't like it, then I just won't sign up again, or I'll delete my account. They're much happier to play in a consumer market, whereas the SMEs, not so much. Not yet, anyway.
I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up and worry that.
Agreed.
Rachel, thank you very much.
Have a nice rest of the evening, guys. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you, Mr. Money Jar.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.